Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining our webinar. My name is Nia Guttridge. I am the president of the Grand Rapids Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta, and this webinar is brought to you by our Social Action Commission. Social action is the name of the game for Delta. We started our first social action advocacy when we marched in the Women's Suffrage March in 1913, which was 111 years ago. We have not stopped advocating what is right. When we see something that is wrong, we would like to right the wrong. But not only that, we want to bring awareness and advocate for those who can't do it for themselves. So the Social Action Committee of Grand Rapids Alumni Chapter saw fit to bring before you awareness and advocacy for the LGBTQ plus community. And we want to give you some nuggets and give you some resources on how to advocate for yourself and where to go if you need assistance in advocating. And we are going to give you a lot of good nuggets in regards to mental health to take care of yourself or those that you know who is a part of the community. And so with that being said, thank you all for being a part of our webinar. And I just want you to bring the questions in. We will provide the answers for you. If we don't have the answers, we will get you connected because we are also being connectors in the community. And so sit back, relax, and enjoy our webinar.
Awesome, thank you. And next up, we'll have Chelsea come off mute, our Social Action Committee Chair.
Thank you, Ford, and thank you, Madam President. My name is Chelsea Austin, and I am the chair of the Social Action Committee for the Grand Rapids Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. I am super excited for this event, and as Madam President said, we have some great nuggets and some resources and some call to actions for after this webinar. We don't want this to be the first and last of the conversation. We wanted to bring this event during June because it's Pride Month, but we don't want this to just be a first and only, June only kind of advocacy. So as you listen to our panelists, we have some great resources that you can either take for yourself or take for your community members, family members, friends, and loved ones. And we also have some really exciting and just knowledgeable things to send to you guys for advocacy moving forward. So as Madam President said, we are a sorority built on social action, and this is what we do. It's not a one-time thing. So we are really excited to give you this information and to really move forward with you all in this fight for justice and equality and equity. So with that, I will turn it back over to my soror, Cambriana Frank.
Thanks, Chelsea, and thanks, Madam President. Yeah, I totally agree with both of you all that this conversation is just the start of many. So we're really excited and I hope that you get some good tidbits. So without further ado, again, my name is Cambriana Crank. I'll be moderating today's wonderful panel. We have a great lineup of speakers here today to offer you their experience, whether that's lived experience, whether that's things that they've researched on their own. And if there are things throughout questions or any type of experience you all have, we never want to feel like the experts in the room. And by all means, that's not what we're doing here today. This is a mutual and shared learning space. So if there are resources that you have, please put them in the chat. If there are questions that you have, please put those in the chat as well. All right, so first up, our first speaker, Janae Beeville, who is the CEO of Beeville Counseling. I'll allow her to come off mute and give a brief introduction about what she does and anything else she'd like to share.
Yes, thank you so much. Appreciate being here. I too am a fellow soror of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. But in my professional life, I am a licensed professional counselor. And so I am the owner and lead therapist of Beville Counseling, a virtual, right now, virtual only mental health therapy practice where myself, along with 7 other therapists, provide mental health support to clients ages 9 and up, a variety of topics of life from trauma to the day-to-day of stress management to depression, anxiety, parenting, relationships, the gambit of life that we experience. And so my task being here today is really to just speak from a provider of people and giving support to people, everyone. And so I'm coming to learning as well. And definitely, I love that you said, Cam, that we are not experts. I never believe I'm an expert of people per se. I just have did a little more research and knowledge and time and spent time with people learning stories. And so I'm really just coming from that experience as well as my own process as I, grow in advocacy and allyship for the LGBTQ plus community. So I am very happy to be here to share.
Awesome. Thank you, Soror. Super happy to have you here. And next up, we have Jazz McKinney, who's the Executive Director of the Grand Rapids Pride Center.
Thank you. I am the lone non-soror here, but that's okay. I feel like the stepchild that got adopted today, so I'm good. But yeah, no, my name is Jazz. I use they, them pronouns. I am the Executive Director of the Grand Rapids Pride Center, as well as the co-founder and lead principal consultant of Paradigm Shifts Consulting, as well as also a mental health therapist when I have time, because there's not that many hours of the day, sadly. I'm just happy to be here.
Awesome. Thank you, Jazz, so much for being here. And last but certainly not least, my other soror, Chelsea.
Yes, thank you. So I am here in the capacity of both the chair of the Social Action Committee, as well as my day job. I am an attorney at Miller Johnson Associates, and I'm a corporate attorney, but I have a passion for, again, social action. So I'm here to talk to you all about some exciting expansions in our law to cover and protect the rights of the LGBTQ plus community, as well as making sure that, it's a huge election year. I cannot stress that enough. And the ways that we can advocate for ourselves in our community through our votes. So I'm here to speak on that. And I'm super excited for this opportunity, and I look forward to the questions and both from Cam and our audience.
Thank you. Thank you, Chelsea. All right, so let's go ahead and just kick it off with the bases. So I'll just start off with our first panel question. So as an ally and or someone part of the LGBT community, why is awareness and advocacy so crucial during this time, past, present, or even thinking about the future? So we can start there. And again, all of these questions can be for all of you, or maybe some of you.
I can start. I think that to answer your question on why is awareness and advocacy important, I think that the way that we kind of think about advocacy, we can't really advocate unless we're knowledgeable, right? And I think Cam said it perfectly at the beginning. We're not all experts, but if we're willing to learn, if we're willing to take the resources, learn from people in the community, learn from our elders, and learn from the experts, then we can take our knowledge and our expertise in what our experiences to help move forward for justice and advocacy. So I will be the first person to say that I don't know all the history of the LGBTQ plus community in this country or the laws and things like that. But if I'm educating myself, I'm only arming myself for that fight for advocacy. I'm arming myself for people who might not want to move as fast or as forward as the people on this panel or the people within the community. I think education is like the first step to educating yourself and the community is the first step to making progress. So I think that when you're willing to raise your hand and you're willing to make mistakes and willing to learn and take the feedback, that is crucial. So I think that that's kind of my answer for that. I think that education and the willingness to open yourself to the unknown and again, take the feedback. It's hard to hear like, hey, you're doing this wrong, or like you didn't get that right, or your way of thinking that you might have had your whole life is harmful to people. But as soon as you kind of relinquish yourself to say, you know what, I don't know everything. I want to be a good person. I want to be a good community member. I'm willing to, you know, take it on the chin and learn. That's how we can make progress. No one's expecting anyone to be perfect right out the gate, but I do expect people to have that sense of, I'm willing to open myself up to the criticism, to the feedback, in order for me to move forward and be an ally and an advocate.
I love that. I love that. Educating yourself and also taking that off of the LGBT community. They shouldn't have to be the one, and we should have to be the one to be educating all the time. So what you can do in your capacity and efforts, which is a low lift, you just educating your own self, is just as important too. So I agree with that. Anybody else?
Yes, I would say it's crucial to be an ally and advocate for the community at this time, as well as any other time in history, but even more so now because lives are at stake. We're talking about people, we're talking about human beings. So it's always crucial. And so with that said, for me, it's really about love, being able to show people, everyone, that they are loved, that they are valued, that they have a purpose here in this world, many purposes. I don't believe we all have just one, but that they have many purposes to, you know, to have their experience of life and to live and to have all the joy and love that everyone wants to experience. And so I think it's just crucial because those are the things that help us to feel like we belong and help us to feel like we should live and should be here. And so just speaking as, you know, why I'm even in the profession that I'm in, it's about giving space for people to be who they are, say how they feel, and to have the moment to say, I don't know, or I do know, but I don't know how to, you know, communicate. I don't know how to live in the world, in the relationships I currently have and to go forward. Like, it's so crucial that I myself do my job to learn people's story and to hear them and to value them. And I think not just because I'm a therapist, but if you're a human being, we want that same treatment. So why wouldn't we also give it to other people? So that's why I do believe it's very crucial into what Chelsea said, being a self-learner and educator, of wanting to get out there and learn, you know, not just expect people to tell you, but to also take initiative to learn as well. And we always learning. So it's never about being an expert, but just being open and willing.
I agree with that. Like down to the basics, like lives are at stake. And if that does not matter to you, I don't know what will. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, and I think to add to that, also taking away the judgment of it, like we as humans love to judge and we judge everything from the littlest thing to the biggest thing. Um, and like, but we judge ourselves the hardest. And so I've ran into this a lot over the years of like, you know, well, I should get it. I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have known this, you know, like, and then that actually hinders us because instead of owning it and saying like, yep, I made a mistake, but you know what? I'm going to do better. I'm going to keep trying. We hinder ourselves because then we get stuck in, I shoulda, coulda, woulda. And then we judge ourselves for it. And then we're horrible people. And then I suck. And, you know, like, instead of just like owning it and like keep it pushing. But again, the key word in that is you still gotta own it. You can't just be like, oh no, I made mistakes. Oh well, I'm just gonna keep making them. Well, yeah, that's true. You probably are gonna keep making them, but you still gotta put in the work to not make them.
I like that. And that goes back to like that human piece that Janae was talking about. Like we're all human as well, but also acknowledging that. Like we have to acknowledge harm that we may even cause in those spaces in order to move forward on both ends. So I really like that. Thank you all. All right, so our next question here, now we're going to talk about some potential misconceptions. So what are some common misconceptions about LGBTQ plus mental health, and how can we address those misconceptions that we often hear?
I'll start this off being the resident's mental health person, along with Jazz, of course. So please jump in. So common misconceptions, of course, we go historically that that one being attracted to the same sex was a mental illness. Unfortunately, although that was revoked back in I want to get my right dates here. I'm big about that.
73.
73. I was about to say it, yep, back in 1973. It doesn't mean that the stigma and unfortunately misconception still carries in our society. So understanding that it is not a disorder that someone can be diagnosed with, it is just who they are. And so that's one misconception. The other, that there's a few, but kind of a couple I did want to bring out too, is that they may have higher rates of mental illness. And so what I want to point out with that is, although, yes, there can be rates of depression, anxiety that are high for those in the community, but it really sometimes is really based on a level of support and treatment that they get in the areas that they are in that can enhance that depression and anxiety. So it may seem like they have more, but it may be, well, where are they located and are they getting support that contributes to that? And it's been studies found that in, communities where people are literally supported and able to, not have the added social issues or the personal issues, that their depression, anxiety are at the same rate as we would say the general society, general world. So even that is a common misconception. And there's many others I would say, but really it just goes back to the best way to address misconceptions is one, to get knowledge, understand what was historical, but understand where that may have come from and what has been dismantled and not, what's been proven versus what we think. And being, again, a learner of what is fact. So that's my approach to that too. But of course, there are other misconceptions.
Thank you for sharing that. I'm over here taking notes on my laptop, like of these statistics and data. So you see, we always learning, y'all. We are always learning.
Yep. I would also say, one that is a big misconception that I'm glad at least Michigan has addressed within the last year is that we can be cured. So luckily, Michigan became the 22nd state to ban the practice of conversion therapy, which ironically was created in Michigan in modern times. But yeah, the practice of conversion therapy, and that there's something to be cured, and that, and even if there is, which there's not, but even if there is, that conversion therapy works. And instead, what conversion therapy does is actually make people a lot worse, or lie, or hide themselves, or whatever else, and it just essentially puts people back in the closet. But it doesn't work, and we can't be cured. And then yeah, everything Janae said too about just general mental health, and but it is important, and we have to talk about it, and we have to also talk about the intersectionality of it, because when we talk about intersectionality and impact that microaggressions and discrimination and all the isms have on people, we have to understand that that happens within the LGBT plus community as well. And so, say for instance, you have like a white cisgender gay man, he definitely can experience a rise or a increase in risk for mental health and other concerns, violence, homelessness, suicidality, STIs, depression, anxiety, all the things, right? Excuse me. But, or rather, and not but, and if we're thinking about, let's say, a Black trans woman, she's experiencing microaggressions based on her being Black. She's experiencing microaggressions based on her being trans, and she's experiencing microaggressions based on her being a woman. And so her rates and her risk level of experiencing mental health concerns skyrocket. And so we have to also talk about that piece of like, yes, some of the rates could be seen as quote unquote similar, but in fact, it's actually not similar because, even within the LGBT community, um, we still have to think about all these other factors. We still have racism within the community. We still have sexism. We still have, ableism. We still have all the things, all the phobias, biphobia, transphobia, right? Even within the community. So we have to talk about those as well and acknowledge those to be able to acknowledge the mental health aspect and how much impact that has on people.
Okay, talk about it. I was like, I don't know if you see me just over here snapping. My mute was down, but yes, intersectionality is definitely important and it's real. And we need to talk about that rather than thinking of us as a monolith or just everybody's clumped up in the same thing. They have the same experiences, the same oppression. That's not true. Completely agree. Yes, Chelsea, the importance of understanding intersectionality. Yeah. Perfect. All right, well, that kind of segues into our next question, still about mental health. So how can we improve access specifically to mental health resources for LGBTQ plus individuals?
Well, I would say it really is obviously access is knowing who's out there to support. And so knowing the resources wherever you live, where that might be for mental health therapists. So I first want to say access to me starts with us as therapists and the providers who are going to be the ones. So one of my key things that I'm really focusing on with my own practice is helping the therapists to develop and to be great therapists to support people. So to me, it's great we can find them, but I want to make sure we find great, well-equipped therapists for our people and for the community. And so just speaking from a therapist standpoint, it is our job to learn how to treat people. I may not be an expert in all things, I'm not right now, I don't have children. So no, I'm not an expert in parenting, but do I know about some parenting things and relationships and the work I've done? Yes, because I took the time to learn them and to apply them and to stumble through, in all honesty, with clients. And so it's really up to us as therapists to learn what we can, what our best practices, but also what is harmful, what would be harmful language, what would be harmful treatment. Like we learned, conversion therapy doesn't work. And there may be some who think that it does because they are just so misguided in how they may have got their learning, honestly. So it's up to us to really stay up to date as therapists so that when we are found, we are able to give great support and services to people in the community, and that we can truly treat them and help them heal or find whatever they need to find in therapy. And then, of course, identifying, therapists and mental health organizations that clearly state in that, and whether it's on their website or whether in how they, do their marketing or support or whatever it might be, it really helps. For instance, if we're on Psychology Today, if I have that listed, because now someone doesn't have to really dig hard, you're like, oh, it's listed right there. I don't have to wait for a consultation to go, well, are you also? It's helpful to make as less of a barrier as possible for people to find people. So using the right wording, even in our marketing, can help create that access for what we need. And so I'll pause there, but that's just my thought process coming from a therapist standpoint.
As you already know, here I come.
Yep.
Because mental health is not accessible, period. Okay, and this is for all of us. This ain't even just the community, but also more so for the community. Mental health resources are not accessible because one, we don't teach it. So even as a therapist that specializes in LGBTQ care, I had to take what I knew about the community and research and stuff that I did on my own. And then I had to take what I learned about how to be a mental health therapist, and I had to put that together within myself. And then I started seeing a bunch of these clients, and then I became quote unquote an expert. But we don't teach it. So there's social workers, LPCs, LLPs, right? All these folks out there that are just going into the world trying to do therapy, and they don't know what they're therapizing. You know, like, because we're not taught it. And so if we're especially talking about folks that like, and most therapists enter the field because they have a good heart and because they truly want to help people and because they truly want to be there and they want to be a source of support. And having a heart ain't it. Sorry. I didn't had a lot of therapists that had heart. That didn't help me none. You know, like, it also didn't hurt much, but it didn't help either. And so then we add in the fact that it's super expensive. Okay. And that insurance, there's barriers and there's, you know, copays and there's, you know, but then the people who want to get paneled can't get paneled and right, like, because we're letting insurance run the system. And then there's folks who don't have insurance. And it's that catch-22 because, of course, the therapist deserves to have a livelihood and to get money as well. And they can't have their entire caseload be a sliding scale. But then at the same time, what's a sliding scale? Because what works for one therapist may not work for another therapist. And then we got to talk about once you get into therapy. I literally have had a therapist cancel my therapy, even though I was literally on the brink because I owed her $200. And I was just like, I will get it to you as soon as I can, but I need therapy right now so I don't go do something I'm not supposed to be doing, including to myself. And she said, I can't see you until your balance is zero. How is that inclusive? How is that accessible? Right? Like, she didn't even get me somebody else. Right? So we have to talk about all of these things. And then, yes, there are some things that I might want to talk about as an LGBT person that unless you are literally doing the research and staying up to date and getting to know people and all these things, that is hard. I see therapists, I see clients all the time come to the Pride Center asking for LGBT knowledgeable therapists and wanting to be connected to these therapists because they might go see a therapist that is okay, quote unquote, with them being gay, but they don't know anything about it. And so they're like, I'm trying to talk to them about, like, you know, coming out to my mom, and they're encouraging me to come out. And I'm trying to say, like, okay, but my mom could kick me out and I could be homeless. And you're just like, go tell her. Why won't you tell her? Lies are bad. What? You know, so like, we got to talk about all these things. And then to take it even further, because I'm going to keep saying this, we also have to talk about intersectionality. There are very, very, very few BIPOC therapists, period. And then there are very, 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 very few BIPOC therapists that are LGBTQ specialized. And that is a barrier. And so, how can we make that happen? How can we have those conversations? How can we work with the system? Why isn't the system paying us to figure this out? Why aren't we getting grants or state funds or federal funds or whatever it is to literally be able to address these things, particularly when 2020 happened and all of a sudden we gave a crap about mental health, but now it's 2024 and we don't give a crap no more. 2020, they were slinging funds all over the place. Oh, you need mental health? Here you go. Here you go. And what happened to that? It's only 4 years later. We still depressed. All of us. Anyways, I'll pause because
No, you didn't need to pause. Okay. You or Janae did not need to pause at all in that space because that's our reality that we are living in. We still live in a top-down system, as you said, like it's systematic. Like there are people who have the funds that could in itself fund therapists or fund an organization to offer this training to therapists to equip them. So I think when we're talking about access, as you said, we need to get to that root issue too. So yeah, no, thank you both for your responses. And I mean, yeah, even with me and I'll just share, I know I'm the moderator, but I think I'm allowed to also share sometimes. So, but even me, like searching for a therapist as well. Like I went to psychology today. I'm like, okay, is there a Black therapist? Is there a female identifying therapist? Does this person have LGBTQ plus in this space? Do they offer this certain insurance? Is it going to be virtual because I need flexibility? Like all of those pieces too, like it narrowed down really small. I didn't really have a lot to pick from at that. And then, you know, your insurance, yeah, there's a lot of people outside of your state, but your insurance only covers, you know, therapists that's in that space too. So yeah, like, I mean, even from experience, like it's difficult. It is very much difficult out. And then the therapists that I did want to go to, they're not accepting new clients because everybody's going to them. They're like, oh, a Black therapist who is doing, yes, so they're going to get filled up like this, you know, I mean, and it's a good problem for them to have. But, you know, for people who are looking for those services and additional support, it's scarce out here. So yeah, thank you. All right, and for the audience, I know we're going to be wrapping up shortly. If there are questions or comments you have, feel free to put them in there. We also have the Q&A where you're able to ask questions anonymously as well. So feel free to do that also if that's more comfortable for you. All right, give me one moment here. Okay, so to continue on, if we're thinking about allies, those who may be in the room or watching the recording, how or what are some basic first steps that someone can take to become a better ally to the LGBTQ plus community? I feel like some of the responses were similar in that first panel question or panel response, but if there's other key elements that folks who are interested or looking to grow in their allyship, what would that look like?
I think that I'm going to tie it back to, again, November. This is a big election year. I think that one of the, along with being educated, know who you're voting for. And I know that especially when we're talking about a presidential election, you know, the big tickets, it's like, who's going to be president? A lot of what we face in like the Grand Rapids community, our smaller communities, yes, it matters who is our president, who's the head of our state. It matters who is our governor. It also matters who are our city commissioners, who are our city council, who are those, you know, those quote unquote down ticket votes, right? Those are the people that are going to be directly affecting policies and policies that affect our communities. So when we're talking about being educated in the ally space, it's also being educated with who you're voting for. And I know that takes a lot of time when a lot of resources to understand like voting history, understanding who these candidates have supported in the past, but it's so important. I think that one of the easiest ways to be an ally is to be a voter, and to be a voter for people who support the policies that affect in a positive way our communities, the LGBTQ plus communities. So I think, again, I won't stop plugging the fact that we have this election. It's so important to be educated to see who are the people that, and don't get, obviously it's a very important presidential election, but do not take for granted those down ticket votes, those quote unquote local elections, because again, those are the people that are going to be directly affecting our community. I won't get into a whole government lesson between federal law and state law and how, you know, you really need to be focusing on who's representing us at the state level. But again, I think I won't keep beating a dead horse, but it's really important to be educated. And I think that a lot of my allyship, I think, can come from who I'm voting for and making sure that the right people are in power to empower our communities and to put policies in place. So that way, you know, putting people in place that are going to help fix this insurance scheme that we have in this country that can make things like mental health resources more accessible, putting funding into our places like the GR Pride Center, putting funding into education at the school levels for kids that are growing up and discovering who they are and having resources as they're coming into adolescence and adulthood. It's so important. Even my dad's on the school board back home. School board elections, people laugh, they are so important because they are affecting the policies that are affecting our children. And as we grow in our allyship, it's so important to also grow the next generation of allies. So that way, when we're having these conversations, it's not such you're not learning new concepts when you're in your 20s or 30s. You're learning these concepts as you're growing up, and it's important that we're putting the right people in power that are going to affect those policies.
Yeah, I'll add to that voting piece specifically too, and getting to know all the elections too, because like we also have judicial elections, which are the most partisan, supposed nonpartisan elections. And so paying attention to those as well, paying attention to, like you said, school board, mayor. We have a mayoral election this year too. Like, and I feel like that never gets talked about. We only talk about the bigger things, right? Like, excuse me. But I would say to add to that too, specifically around the LGBT community, talk to the community and get to know what we're saying about some of these candidates as well, because we are in the information overload age where sometimes you can have too much information. And trust me, the teacher and educator side of me hates that sentence. But we have made it so that there is information overload. And, the way that people talk to us sometimes, I just had somebody knock on my door today and started off the conversation talking about, hey, do you care about insert hot button topic here? And I was like, well, yeah. And they were like, well, and then it was something completely opposite what I believe, right? And so like they thought they had me. And I'm like, no, we need to have these conversations, but we also have to be careful as to what people are saying, because we know some of these things are hot button topic issues, right? Like we know that being LGBTQ friendly is cool right now, but then they go and they vote otherwise once they get us, right? Even President 44 said he was LGBT inclusive so that he could get that vote. And as soon as he got into office, everything had changed, right? So we have to also understand who has been here for us in the community more than just the 4 or 5 months before election when everybody is for us. And that's for everybody, our Black folks, our brown folks, all the rest of the BIPOC folks. That is for, LGBT community, that is for disabled community, that is for homeless people, right? That is for everybody. We have to know who is here, who is standing with us, who is rolling with us, whatever, to be inclusive, right? Who is with us before it's cool.
And I
Madam
think
President might have something to say. She popped in.
Oh,
Right.
Madam President, you have
Yeah,
something to say?
sorry.
You want to jump in?
Yes, just to piggyback off of Jazz. Yeah, you see me popping in, and because we're talking about voting and we're talking about people's platform, when they say, I'm for this, I'll do this, I'm for the people, power to the people, all of that, right? But then they get in, but the people around them is what's stopping their agenda from going forward. So not only is the election for presidency is important, but the smaller elections for the local and state senators and the representatives, the congressmen, the commissioners, the mayor, even the sheriff's office, the judges, all of those elections are important because they are the makers and the breakers of the president's agenda, right? So we have to not only know what the platform of the big election, the presidents, the senators, and the representatives, but we also need to know the platform of the local, the state, the mayor, because that all builds upon one another, because information flows down, but it also flows up too. If we are out from the advocacy piece, because I heard Sora Cam said, what's the next step? What's the steps to help this? We need to understand what the agendas and the platform and the mindset of everybody from the mayor on up. And then we need to start writing letters and bombard them and say, hey, this is important to us. Because this is important to us, and I have a vote, but I also have influence along with my vote. So now what you gonna do? And then you just keep moving it forward. That's what Deltas are about, social action, right? And we're talking about the issues of mental health. We're talking about the issues of belonging, equity. That's all in diversity, because I truly can't show up as my true self if you are continually suppressing me, right? But not only that, I'm educating, but I need to educate you because you are in school to help me, as Jazz was saying, help me with my mental state, but yet you letting $200 stopping me from either harming myself or harming somebody else. One of the two, whichever way, verbal or whatever. And we're talking about advocacy and awareness. That's how we can advocate, not only for the LGBTQ plus community, but for our community as well. We have to hit the ground hard, and we can't be afraid of doing it. That's all I am saying. I'm gonna go back dark because I had to, because it was like right here.
I need to just spotlight you too. You practically on the panel now after that.
Right,
that was
after that.
good.
I will just add to that too. We have to also get out of this white supremacist mindset that our vote does not count. I know it's frustrating sometimes, but especially in the last even 8 years, we should have seen that every single vote actually does count, because President 44 didn't win the election. But anyways, I'll just say that.
I think that, as Jazz was saying, as Madam President was saying, it all matters, right? I think that especially like you said, you took the word right out of my mouth. It can get frustrating, right? And you hear a lot, especially like voter fatigue and all that. It's way more frustrating to have to fight on the back end because we didn't show up to the polls, right? And I loved Jazz's point about talk to the people in the community. We as, Black people, we know the people that are, for our cause. Talk to the people who are in the LGBTQ plus community, because you'll know the drill down of like how this person actually is, and it's not just the cameras, or it's not just, we're in September and people are on the campaign trail kissing babies and saying all the right things to get your vote. They'll be able to say, like, actually back in 2016, they voted 5 times against expansion of the Elliott Larson Act. Something's not clicking, right? So I think that talking to people in the community, because there's advocates in every community. So understand, like, talking to those advocates, talking to those people that are the boots on the ground for like voter rights and just like voter initiatives, it's so important. So I just wanted to highlight that. Took the words right out of my mouth, Jazz. And same with you, Madam President, of like, we need to get out there and vote. And again, it can be exhausting. I get it. As a social action chair, exhausting. But this work is important.
Also, I meant President 45, by the way.
We
President 44 definitely got elected, but
we got you. Chelsea, I feel. Oh, Janae, were you going to say something? I'm sorry.
Okay. I was just going to add, just from, because I'm so big on little words. I'm like, the basic first steps. I think for what we're talking about at the root of it is looking at yourself and what would you want and how would you want to be treated? What is important to you? Because to get behind that vote, I have to have something influencing me, encouraging me. And a lot of times, and talk about intersectionality, Lord, those big words. Like being a Black person, being a Black woman, I am obviously going to be more in tune on things that affect me, but I can't just look at what affects me. I got to look at what affects everybody. It's not just me in this world. I'm not the only one that has struggles and suffering just because I'm a Black woman. There are other people who also have that. And again, going back to the basics of human connection, human care for other people. So to I guess to join in the conversation, that to get to the root of it, we have to care about people. That's it.
Well, thank you for sharing that. That's important. Yeah, caring about people. Absolutely. And I feel like we've already been having discussion about policy and our vote and the power of that. So that was our next question. How can allies support certain policies for the community? Is there anything else that folks wanted to add on in response to that? I feel like you all did a good job. If there's anything else.
I just wanted to say, like, I don't know if this is the right time to say it, but we do have some important election dates coming up. I don't know. Let me just put those out there. Everyone take out their notepads. So as we know, we have our primary election coming up. Actually, perfect timing. Today, June 27th, absentee ballots are being made available for the primary election. And so communities, you can start early voting on July 7th of this year. The deadline to register to vote for the primary is July 22nd. And for all the panelists or for all the attendees, this is a lot of dates. So I'm gonna, we'll send this information. This won't be the first or the last time you hear it. At least definitely not the last time. But August 6th is election day for the primaries. So everyone always talks about the general election, which of course is very important. Primaries are very important too. So with Michigan expanding their access to the polls with absentee voting and things in-person registration, it's really important to kind of have these dates on your radar. So again, absentee ballots as of today for the primary are being made available. Deadline to register online is July 22nd. You can start early voting on July 27th, and August 6th is that general election. We know that November 5th is the primary, or sorry, August 6th is the primary. November 5th is the general. So we'll have, as we get closer to election dates, social action will have more events and things like that to really engage with our community. But I really wanted to take the time to point that out, that, you know, we're in go mode right now. We really don't take the summer off, especially when it's a major election year like now. So we want to make sure that the community knows about these important dates.
That's awesome. Thank you, Chelsea. And I put in the chat that in our follow-up email, I'll be sure to put all of the resources or the election day information that Chelsea just shared in that follow-up email. And while we're on the tidbit about resources to round us off, what are some key LGBTQ mental health organization resources and or election if folks want to learn more about, hey, what's the difference between presidential and my local election, as Madam President talked about, like, where could they go to get this information? So if you all in your field or within your experience of work have resources that are crucial to this topic on awareness and advocacy, can you please share that with us? And whatever you share today, I'll be sure to include that in our follow-up email too.
Well, I'll share from the mental health standpoint. My two go-tos. One is our mental health collective, which is, you know, the collective of BIPOC therapists here in Grand Rapids, but really Kent County, Michigan-wide, for those that serve virtually. And so you can check the directory to find therapists who are BIPOC and who also will have that affirming language so that you can, again, pick them out and point out much easier and quicker. And then also Tobin Counseling is a therapist that I know personally who also, that is their specialty. And so I know they also offer mental health support as well, and have, I believe it's a group, so it's not just one person, but that they also too have, you know, that support as well. So those are the two top resources from a mental health standpoint that I wanted to point out.
Yeah, so there's an organization that is a 501c4 called Equality Michigan and their Action Network. So they do a lot of work, particularly around the LGBT community and laws and legislation. And they also post a like an endorsement list for elections across the state. And you know, just different things that are happening in the world. So they post that, you know, just today or yesterday, we now have our oh goodness, what bill is it? It's our the gay panic defense bill ban is going to Governor Whitmer's desk today now, because in Michigan it's still legal for someone to say like, oh, I went to a bar and this person was flirting with me and then I killed them because I found out they were gay. It's still legal in Michigan to use that defense. So that ban is going to the governor today. So she can hopefully sign that into law that you can no longer use that defense. You can't just be like, oh, they were gay and I hurt them. Um, so, but either way, EQ Michigan Action Network does a lot of that, from the LGBTQ side for sure. And then in that follow-up email, I can also include other resources as well.
Perfect. Thank you, Jazz. Yeah, because I have an anonymous person who asked recommendation for literature too. So if you don't know any about off the top of your head, I'll make sure to include that in my follow-up email too.
And I think I saw a question on where to find some credible information for voting and like people on the ballot and things like that. The Michigan actually does a pretty good job of we have the Michigan Voter Information Center through the Secretary of State, and this will be in the information in the follow-up email, but it's actually a great, pretty user-friendly website for voters. So you can ask things like, where's my clerk's office? Where are my ballot drop boxes? What's on the ballot in my district? And you put your address in, and I know people know, but like there's certain things that are going to be on the ballot statewide, nationwide, but then as we kind of talked about before, as you drill down to your specific community, there's different ballot initiatives and things like that. So I always point people to the Michigan Voter Information Center, where any kind of question that you have, there's a great like FYI or FAQ page, I should say, that kind of gives you that information. And as an attorney, I'm calling the Secretary of State almost every other day for my job. They're pretty helpful over there. You just have like a happy face and a happy smile when you're speaking, but a lot of times if you have questions, you can kind of really get on the phone with someone that can point you in the right direction. But again, I won't stop saying, but the Michigan Voter Information Center has some great resources for any kind of questions that you could have on the upcoming election and how to get registered and things like what you need to bring and whatnot.
Thanks, Chelsea. And I'll be sure to include all of these resources that you all mentioned in the follow-up email. And if there's any questions that come from our audience or for those who are watching the recording after, please feel free to email the Social Action Committee email. And if we don't know the answers, we will make sure to connect you to additional resources. But that was all my questions. I feel like we answered all the questions in the chat. So I want to thank you all for attending, and thank you to our great panel for being here. I'll turn it over to our Madam President to officially close us out.
Wow. I hope you all had taken some notes. They had dropped some great nuggets. First of all, love is the name of the game. Love conquers all. Everyone deserves love. Everyone deserves to be loved. But not only everyone deserves to be loved, everybody deserves to belong somewhere. Everyone deserves to feel like they belong. Everyone deserves to have no judgment against them. Everyone deserves not to pass judgments on others. Everyone deserves to educate themselves. Everyone deserves education. Everyone deserves not to have microaggressions against them. Everyone deserves not to pass microaggressions on people. Everyone deserves to have their mental health taken care of. Everybody deserves a good mental health spot where they can come and unload and get tools in their toolbox to help them along the way, regardless of who you are. Everyone deserves to have someone to advocate for them. Everybody deserves to advocate for someone. Everybody deserves to vote. Everybody has a vote. I hope that you all have taken those nuggets, because that's what I got from this panel, and wrote them down and do something about it. If you decide to just go out and say, I love you to someone, mean it and smile at them, you have done something. Do something versus not doing anything at all. This panel was to bring awareness and to advocate for the LGBTQ community. However, the nuggets that they have dropped on us is for all of the community. So don't be afraid to ask the questions. Ask them anonymously, but ask the question, so you can get the help that you need, or so you can be connected to the supportive services that will help you. Delta Sigma Theta, Grand Rapids Alumni Chapter, we are social action. Social action is what we do. We will continue to connect the dots to be advocate and bring awareness to all types of issues. And today, June Pride Month awareness, we decided to bring awareness to the LGBTQ plus community. And I just thank you for giving us an hour in your day to take the time to listen and to understand. But most of all, if you really want to know what's going on in the LGBTQ community and what it is that they are thinking and what it is that they need them, go up to them and ask them. You would want someone to come up to you and ask you. So go and ask the question. Hey, have the conversation. Then you would know exactly what it is that you need to do. Do something versus nothing. Thank you all and good night.
Thank you, Madam President. You all have a good evening. Thank you.